Good afternoon, dear colleagues. The situation in the zone of the anti-terrorist operation remains tense. The intensity of shelling has not decreased, and the militants do not abandon their attempts to broaden the territories they control, and they attack and shell our positions on Donetsk, Debal'tsevo, Lugansk, Mariupol directions and in the vicinity of Bahmutivskoyi highway. They systematically conduct air reconnaissance with the use of drones. In general, 7 flights were detected in the vicinity of settlements Sartana, Blagodatne, the checkpoint Rybinsk, and in the vicinity of Red Talivky. In the Debal'tsevo direction, the terrorists from grad batteries and mortars have 5 times shelled the road checkpoints of anti-terrorist operations next to Debal'tsevo. From self-propelled artillery guns, mortars, grenade launchers, and small firearms, they fired at our positions in the vicinity of Volnovakha, Nikishin, and Maloorlivka. Also, in the night to the 23rd of November, for 4 hours, they have periodically fired from small firearms at the road checkpoint next to Artemivsk. Our military have returned fire and repelled the attack. In the Donetsk direction, over the last 24 hours, the militants have twice shelled from tanks and artillery our positions on the territory of airport. Also from artillery, mortars, and firearms, they have fired at the positions of anti-terrorist operation next to Pisky, Avdiivka, Opitne, Tonenke, Shumy, and Mayorske. Next to the settlement Slavne, they used grad batteries. The airport is controlled by Ukrainian military. And on the approaches to the airport, there's enough forces in order to support the defenders of this strategically important object. In the vicinity of Bahmutivskoyi highway, the terrorists have 3 times shelled the Ukrainian positions from grad batteries and also from mortars, the positions next to Rybinsk. In all the cases where the positions of the enemy artillery or militants were detected, the Ukrainian military have fired in response. On the initiative of the Ukrainian side, there were talks between the OSCE special mission in Ukraine with the militants of the so-called Don troop under the command of Ataman Kozitsyn about the restoration of conditions for the restoration of gas and electricity supply to Rybinsk. Ukrainian repairmen started the work. However, the militants have violated their own promises and fired at the workers from grenade launchers. The works had to be stopped to avoid the danger for people. Rybinsk, as a result of constant shelling, has been without gas for over 3 weeks. And in the peaceful time, there were almost 2,000 people there. The situation in the Lugansk direction remains tense. The militants from mortars, grenade launchers, and small firearms fired massively against the positions of anti-terrorist operation next to Stanitsa Luganska. They shelled from artillery and mortars the cities of Shastya and the village Makarova. There was a small decrease of the intensity of shelling on Mariupol direction. Over the last 24 hours, 3 Ukrainian military died and 24 were wounded. Yesterday in the Lysenko Ternopil region, on the basis of a military hospital with the help from charity foundations, the first installment of rehabilitation rooms for wards for warriors from anti-terrorist operation zone opened. In Rivne region, the volunteers of the group Help to the Army Rivne conduct a series of trainings from the combat tactical medicine in order to teach to deliver pre-doctors medical help to Ukrainian patriots who protect territorial integrity and sovereignty of our country. In Zhytomyr, the specialists of the land service and local self-government bodies have confirmed 271 decisions about the permits for the plots of land for the anti-terrorist operation participants. Also, as for the time being, 2.5 thousand members of the participants in the anti-terrorist operation got the status of the participants in combat action. The State Border Service has got 235 million hryvnia for fortification of the Ukrainian-Russian border. In Donetsk, as a result of a firing from terrorists, residential houses and economic objects in Kuybishevsky and Petrovsky districts were damaged. As a result of militants shelling, 339 transformator substations are without electricity supply in the city, and the gas pipeline in Kirovsky district has been damaged. As a result of the actions of Russian mercenaries, residents of Kuybishevsky, Kievsky, and Voroshilovsky districts of Donetsk have no electricity or gas. The State Security Service of Ukraine has detained the subversive group that were preparing an explosion at the premises of one of the district precincts of the Ministry of Interior of Ukraine in Kharkiv, in a densely populated district. Two of the members of the criminal group were citizens of Ukraine, born in 1964 and 72. The elder was a precinct inspector of the Ministry of Interior of the precinct that was planned to explode. His abettor was dismissed from the Ministry of Interior previously, and during the search at the flat of one of the criminals, the so-called sticking mine SPM was found that was planned to glue in or stick in, that was planned to be used for terrorist act. Today, the meeting of Mr. Poroshenko with the President of Lithuania, Dalia Grybauskaitė, has started. They plan to discuss a broad range of issues. Yesterday, Dalia Grybauskaitė said that she is in favor of providing Ukraine with military help from European Union. The ambassador of the USA in Russia, John Teft, said that so far there are no clear steps that Russia would take in order to influence the situation in the eastern regions of Ukraine. On the contrary, the situation becomes ever more critical, he said. Over the last months, only the workers of the State Service for Emergencies have delivered 400 tons of humanitarian help to Donbass, which includes food products and first amenity, first necessity products, and 10 million hryvnia from the state budget were allocated for this in order to provide for the first needs of Donetsk and Lugansk residents' needs.
Jamie Detmer, Daily Beast. Two questions, sir. I just come back from southeast Ukraine. It is very noticeable that the separatists have, a lot of separatists I saw had winter clothing, new camouflage winter clothing, whereas many of the Ukrainian soldiers I saw, and particularly the volunteers, did not have winter clothing. When is winter clothing going to get down to southeast Ukraine? Would it also be going to volunteers as well as regular Ukrainian soldiers? Second question is, you talk about shellings from the rebels. I assume that there was some kind of response from the Ukrainian forces. Could you talk about any responses that Ukrainian troops made to shelling from the separatists?
Thank you for Перше, що стосується
First, on winter clothing to military who are in the anti-terrorist operation zone. We received from the leadership of the law enforcement bodies the information that the issue of transporting warm clothing and everything needed to heat people there, the so-called heating stoves and other things, that is being done, but we do have information that not everyone has it. But as far as I understand, as far as I know, the Minister of Defense is personally controlling that, so that in the nearest future this issue is addressed as to providing all that to volunteers. The law enforcement bodies are not providing everything to volunteers, because volunteers, they are providing a lot of assistance to our military, and they provide assistance to themselves, and we are grateful to them for that. As to your second question about the behavior of those who are terrorists, they're not rebels. So I would like to request you not to use the word rebel, but the terrorist. The thing is that not a single day passed so that they do not violate Minsk agreements. The Ukrainian side is executing all the agreements, and when there are shellings to our positions, our military are firing back. If this is the attack, they are rebelling the attack. If it is shelling, they identify the firing points of the enemy, and they eliminate, our artillery eliminates these points. And that is done at a very high level now. So we don't see any attempts to start an open attack on Ukrainian positions. Any other questions? Two questions, brief questions. First, the militants said that they are ready to make Donetsk and Shastya demilitarized zone. What are the actions, what the attitude of Kiev to that, or the reaction of Kiev? Thank you. We expect when the military finish their home assignment, and that is item 1 of Minsk agreement, which is ceasefire. That is one of the first requirements of Minsk protocol and Minsk memorandum. As soon as they do that, then we can talk about implementation of other items of Minsk agreements. And the second question, they stated that they are ready to receive humanitarian assistance from Kiev. Will there be any humanitarian assistance sent from Kiev? Many times, the representatives of the State Service on Emergency Situations were trying to send humanitarian assistance there, but there was a refusal from receiving this assistance, and that assistance was distributed to the settlements which are under the control of Ukrainian forces. That's more than 400,000 tons of humanitarian assistance. It has been distributed to local population. The terrorists are addressing to give them something. Probably they were addressing Moscow. If they want to receive it from Ukraine, they have to satisfy all the conditions. They have to ensure the conditions so that this assistance can be brought there. In this case, the representatives of the International Committee of Red Cross are to be involved, just like it should be according to international rules of providing humanitarian assistance. Last week, you stated that from Russian side there were shellings of Ukrainian territory registered. And is there a reaction of the OSCE on shelling of Ukrainian territory by from Russia? During the last 24 hours, the Russians were not shelling at Ukrainian positions from their territory. Why? We do not know. They were not shelling. and OSCE, the representatives of OSCE, who are now working on increasing their presence, increasing their enlargement of their mission. Every day in their reports, they report on what they see. They work on this line of delineation line, and then on some of the points on the border which are not controlled by Ukrainians. Gennady Moskal called upon the citizens in Lugansk region to make trenches. What do you know about that? And there's information that the militants from DNR, LNR brought the machines or devices to print money. Is that true? I will start from the second question. A week ago, for the first time, there was information that on the territory of Donbass, there was an equipment brought to print Ukrainian money, and we warn almost every day that there is a danger that the false banknotes could be disseminated. So we call upon population to be very careful in any trading operations, because there's a high probability that such money will appear in the markets when people pay to each other. So we remind again so that our citizens do not fall victims to these falsifications. As soon as they have a suspicion that they are offered for some goods, some fake banknotes, the banknotes which do not satisfy the criteria of real hryvnia, and that's easy to say because the paper should be of different quality, the color, where there is the figure, and there should be this water site, and there should be the protective strip on the banknote. So all these are elementary rules, and if it happens so that people at night or in some situation were given such money, then they have to inform about that the bodies of the Ministry of Interior, and they should request any bank to do the expert analysis of this banknote, and during 5 days they have to do that and give you an answer whether that is really a fake banknote. But we call upon you, please, if you have this faked banknote, do not use it to buy something, because immediately you will be accused by people who are more careful than you are. And as to the statement of Gennady Moskal, Gennady Moskal, as a person who's military, he's a real governor, he's the general, and he feels all this danger. He's over there, so we really appreciate his work. He all the time he goes to different settlements, the settlements which were shelled. We understand that he has his own sources of information, and he does all these additional protection structures that please ask your questions into the microphone. Do you believe that the mission of OSCE is efficient in its work? The monitoring mission of OSCE has the mandate. They are monitoring the situation. That is one of their tasks according to the mandate, and they are reporting on the situation. If you saw now when the intensity of shellings got higher, and when there are more movements of terrorist groups, very often in their reports they give this information. They do it carefully without mentioning any or accusation of any side. They're just registering, fixing what's happening. Any other questions? Once you have no more questions, thank you, and tomorrow